Okay, now you should be good to go.
Okay, I'll call this Arches Hotspot Region Coordinating Committee regular meeting to order at 12:33 p.m. October 30th, 2020. And I will entertain a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from the October 21st, 2020 meeting. Motion made.
I so move to approve the minutes.
Motion
Second.
made by Council Member Guzman Newton, second by
Kalen.
Council Member Jones. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
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 Opposed? Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. And with that, I will call this regular meeting of the Arches Hotspot Region Committee to a close at 12:34 p.m. Thank you.
So Ronnie's waiting to be let in. FYI.
Yes.
I don't see her in the waiting room, but I'm looking.
Okay.
Is she maybe joining by phone?
Hang on.
I'm going to hold until we have Ronnie.
I just texted her for what that's worth and asked her to join.
She texted me and said and asked me if I was able to get in successfully. So
I would move to table and move on to item 3.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I am opening this joint meeting of the Grand County Commission, the Arches Hotspot Coordinating Committee, and the Moab City Council. On the County Commission, we have Mary McGann, Evan Clapper, Curtis Wells, and Gabriel Wojtek. For staff that are on are Chris Baird, Christina Sloan, Mallory Nassau, and Quinn Hall. Have I missed anyone?
I'm here too, Mary. This is Mila.
Okay, and Mila. Anyone else? Oh, Jaylyn, I see Jaylyn now. Jaylyn Hawks. I didn't see you participating a moment ago. So I will repeat. Joining us from the commission and the county offices are Mary McGann, Evan Clapper, Gabriel Wojtek, Curtis Wells, Jaylyn Hawks. And for staff, we have Chris Baird, Quinn Hall, Mallory Nassau, Christina Sloan, and Mila Dunbar Irwin, and Jaylyn Hawks. Thank you. I believe that's all that are present from the county.
Thank you, Mary. This is Mayor Emily Niehaus, and I will also call this meeting to order for the Moab City Council, and I will list those in attendance myself, Mayor Emily Niehaus. We've got Council Member Tani Knudsen-Boyd, Council Member Kaylin Jones, Council Member Karen Guzman Newton, Council Member Ronnie DeRessery, and Council Member Mike Duncan. On staff, It looks like we've got with us Summer Johnson, our recorder, Carly Castle, our assistant city manager, Chuck Williams, city engineer, Laurie Simonson, our city attorney, Lisa Church, city communications, and that is all I have from the city side. But I will recognize Monty Aldridge from UDOT, who is also in attendance with us. And am I missing anyone?
I think
Okay.
you got everyone.
Okay. We will move on to item 4, citizens to be heard. We are receiving public comments by phone and online through Zoom. Now, citizens are limited to 2 minutes for comments. I also wanted to reiterate that we have received a lot of comments, written comments on items on this agenda. I ask that citizens who have submitted written comments, please do not provide oral comments as well, as your comments have been heard. All written comments that were made through the citizens to be heard written link have been made available to the city council and the county commissioners for review prior to this meeting. So again, if you've submitted a written comment, I do ask you now to leave the Zoom meeting and follow us on YouTube as opposed to sticking around in the Zoom. And with that, Summer, it looks like we've brought people into the meeting.
We have. We can
For
start
comments.
with Elaine
Yeah.
if you'd like. I'll just try to go through, and those that I recognize that are part of any of the public bodies, I will try to not call on them. So I would say probably Elaine, but I don't know if we lost. Nope, she's still here.
I do not believe that Elaine is a citizen to be heard. We can move on.
Okay. The next one, I have a 435-896-0726.
Welcome to the meeting. Please state your name.
This
that
is
Monty?
Monty Aldridge. with UDOT.
Joining by phone? Okay,
Oh.
Monty, I have you both in phone and video.
Yes, I have audio on my phone and video on my computer.
Okay, gotcha. We'll move on.
Thank you, Summer.
I
Who's
have
next?
Valencia Miller.
Welcome, Valencia.
I have written a comment, so I won't comment at this time.
Thank you
Okay.
so much for stating that. And please feel free to leave the Zoom and join us on our YouTube channel online. Thank you, Valencia. Summer,
The
who's
next one I have is Reed Pendleton.
Yeah, I've just got a quick comment to make. My name is Reed Pendleton. I think the shuttle is a good concept, but I'm afraid of how much use it would get from the accommodation sector that it seems to want to target. I feel like in my experience, most of my guests drive into town anyway, just because they're on their way to or from the parks or the trail systems. I can see people who are purposely driving into town to shop or eat using it, but I think the parking would be a bigger necessity in my opinion. I have found myself personally trying to run errands and to certain businesses and such downtown and not able to find parking. And I also do worry about the construction of the parking and what effects that would have in the short term. One other quick comment about the bypass. I do support the bypass 100%. I have seen comments where a bypass would potentially hurt downtown businesses, and I don't think that's the case here. I think a lot of the South Valley residents, people staying in accommodations on the south end of town, and truckers are going to appreciate the bypass in order to avoid congestion downtown. This would encourage people to go downtown more and shop and eat and have a better user experience due to the lessened noise and traffic. If we are going to continue to encourage economic diversification and growth, we need to create the infrastructure to better handle the people who are here now, as well as the ones who are coming. And as the south end of the valley continues to grow, it will only create more of a demand for a bypass. Thank you.
Thank you, Reed, for that comment. Summer, who is next?
Neil Clark.
So Mayor Neal, so I submitted comments, but I was actually hoping to speak on just a little bit broader view than what I submitted. So I was not aware of that rule, but
No worries, 2 minutes, take it away.
Yeah, so I'm Neil Clark. I live in the Mountain View neighborhood. To start, I don't actually think anyone here lives in Mountain View. So I want you all to think about how your opinion might differ if you were discussing a highway within 100, 500, maybe even 1,000 feet of your home. Would you have even moved there in the first place? And I want to speak to the frustration that myself and many members of the community have around this entire issue. And that frustration stems from the continual runaround that we've received from elected officials for years now. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've been told not to worry, that a bypass is not on the table, that we would never do anything to impact one of the neighborhoods. But that's really never been the case. And the bypass continues to bubble to the surface, usually and honestly conveniently right around the time when everyone's frustrated with traffic, which, to be clear, is due to the continual overpromotion of the area. And so anyone who's looking at this objectively can see that the only outcome of more analysis and process is a determination that the only feasible route is going to be through someone's neighborhood. And so far, that neighborhood is Mountain View. You know, it's a mixed income neighborhood of people who work extremely hard to be able to buy their homes and who can't simply sell their place and find a new location in town. And so a resolution and support effectively throws your support behind a process that you ultimately cannot control and that risks destroying someone's home. And for those of us who live in the crosshairs of every proposal to date, there's no benefit. So please don't downplay or obfuscate this issue by saying that you're only exploring the idea further or that you'll only support a tunnel, because a resolution in support of a bypass is supporting a process that leads to one outcome. So please be forthright. Please stop placating. If you support a bypass through Mountain View, you owe it to everybody to be straightforward about that. And if you don't, then do not move forward with a resolution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Summer, who's next?
Kyle.
Kyle, welcome.
I submitted a written comment, but I got it in past the 11 o'clock due date. So would you just include that in your packet? You want me to read it here?
We will. We will do that. We can
Kyle,
amend
did you
that.
submit that via email?
I did. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'll make sure it's in the record.
If you don't have it, I'll resubmit it. So.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who is next?
Next, we have Gary Blackburn.
Welcome, Gary.
No comments. Sorry, I'm just observing.
Okay, the best place to observe is actually on the city's YouTube page. So I ask you now to unzoom and go to YouTube and Moab City Council and watch us live there. Thank you. Summer, who's next?
Ron Holyoke.
Welcome, Ron. Ron, I see that you are unmuted. You can go ahead and make your comments to be heard. I'll give you one more sec. Okay, Ron, we're going to move on. Summer, who is next?
Deborah.
Deborah, please state your name first and last so we know who you are, and welcome. Looks like you're connecting to audio, so we'll give you just a second. Summer, let's come back to Deborah. Who's next?
Let me do one last sweep. Those were the last two that I had. Ron Holyoke and Deborah were the last two that I saw pop in.
Okay. Deborah, are you still there? Are you able to unmute and join us and make a comment? Okay. Ron, also, I see you there. And before I close the citizens to be heard, I'll just make one last call. If you are zoomed into this meeting and would like to make a comment, please unmute yourself now and state your name. Okay, if you are on the Zoom call and you are not city or county or staff working directly from this issue, I will ask that you unzoom yourself and follow us on YouTube. Oh, Deborah, I see that you are unmuted.
Yes, I was trying to help my mother do so that she could comment, Catherine Holyoke. And can I put my phone up to my other Zoom so that you can hear her?
Yes, thank you for helping your mom. We're listening.
Yep, hold on. Mom, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, council members. This is Catherine Holyoke in Moab. I had technical difficulties there for a minute. I submitted an email, which somewhat is defunct now, because I really appreciate Curtis Wells calling this morning and clarifying some of the things that were going on with the bypass. But I was very concerned because the way it came across from your website was that we were making final decisions for bypasses and that type of thing, which that is not true. I have learned since, but I would just hope that when you do consider this, if you do, I wouldn't mind seeing a bypass happen. But the way one of them was drawn, that it went right through my business and would have ruined and wrecked our business, because it came out through our property on South Main there, just past Noel's Furniture Store. But anyway, he explained to me that that is not what you're doing today, and I appreciate his clarification. But I just know, if there is a bypass, I would like to see it coming farther out of town than just staying right here in town, which would somewhat, landlock the town still on the south end as compared to the north end. But anyway, I appreciated being called this morning by him, and I just wanted to clarify that, because the email that I sent is kind of not valid at this time. But I would like to see bypass happen, but not in my yard. So thanks for your help.
Thank you for that comment, and thanks to both of you for calling in. You can go ahead and unzoom, but continue to watch us on YouTube on the city stage.
Just 1 second, Mom.
Okay, and another call out. If you are joining us and would like to be a citizen to be heard and make a comment, will you please unmute yourself now and state your name?
Melanie Snow.
Welcome, Melanie.
Hi. After looking at your map and everything, I'm neighbors to the Hollyoaks. So you're proposing to put the road that would go alongside our house as it cuts down to the main highway. And to me, that's just not feasible. There's already a 2-lane road that goes right by McDonald's. I don't know why you'd need to put another road in our backyard and then come down along the side of our house. As we sit now, the highway noise from the semi trucks that go down the main highway are already bad. So I couldn't imagine them coming down the hill to connect, and we hear them all night long. So I don't know how that's going to be feasible. And even the cost of it would be extraordinary when you already have you're planning a 2-lane road when there's already a 2-lane road there. I do agree there needs to be a bypass. I mean, right now it takes over an hour to get into town from Arches, which is absolutely ridiculous. But I think in your study, it says that the residents wouldn't be affected. There's several residents in the area that will be affected. So I don't know who's whose study that was. Obviously someone that doesn't live in that area, but there are residents that will be affected. And, you know, we've put a lot of time and money into building our place there and enjoying Moab, and to do a road like that right in our backyard and down alongside our home would be devastating. So thank you.
Thank you for calling in with your comment. You're free to unzoom now and join us on our YouTube page and watch the meeting online.
Mayor, we had Kim Kirks join us also.
Okay, Kim, welcome. Go ahead and unmute yourself and you're free to be heard. Kim, if you can hear me, we are here and ready to listen to your comment. Go ahead and unmute yourself and you can make your comment heard. It looks like you're working on your audio. Kim, we can't hear you. So I'm going to recommend that you, if you are unable to connect with audio, I recommend that you make a comment to the Moab City and County Councils, and we will add your comment to the record for today. While we're waiting and seeing if Kim does have audio, are there any other citizens that would like to be heard today for our meeting? Please unmute yourself and state your name.
Hi, this is Kim Kirks.
Welcome, Kim.
Thanks. May I make a comment past the deadline or just general?
You may comment right now if you'd like.
Yeah, okay. I just was wondering if the pollutions have been addressed and wildlife with that going through, behind the neighborhood of Mountain View, McKay Place.
So I'll take that question as a comment, if that's okay, that we're at citizens to be heard. And so we're just receiving comments now, Kim. So thank you for your questions. We appreciate it and we appreciate you coming in. Was there anything further that you'd like to add?
No, not at this time.
Okay, thanks for calling in, and you are free to unzoom from the call and join us live on YouTube under the Moab City Council webpage. Thanks to all of the citizens that have reached out and called under this agenda item. And seeing that we do not have anyone else that appears to be joining us for citizens to be heard, I'm going to move us right along to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 5, presentation of Arches Hotspot Region Coordinating Committee Public Engagement Efforts, Lisa Church. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me join, and I'm going to share my screen with you, and I will be brief. So, let's see. So can everybody see this?
Yes, I can see it. I think we can all.
Great. So this is just going to be a brief overview of the public engagement work that we have done on the Hotspot Committee, beginning in April, actually. And we utilize several methods for Hotspot Committee community outreach, including creating a page on our website, advertising the existence of the committee, and also various activities and events that they were doing. We did surveys. We did 2 of those to get public comment about the different projects that were being proposed. And then the committee also held 2 public meetings. And I've created a little timeline here for you so you can see how that panned out. So beginning in April, I created a page and published it on the city's website, specifically for the Hotspot Committee. And we also had a link at the very top of the website so that people could find that easily. We also advertised the committee and the website throughout the months of April and May so that people were aware that it was there, and to remind them that these activities were going on in terms of the hotspot funding. In May, I presented some public engagement options to the committee during one of their regular meetings, and we discussed ways that they would like to do outreach, or timelines for them as well for when they would be ready to do outreach. In August, and I should say that the efforts to update the website and add new information were ongoing throughout the months of June and July as well, although there wasn't a lot of other activity at that point. In August, we launched the Off Main Street Parking Survey for the Hotspot Committee, and this focused specifically on the proposals for median parking between 200 North and 100 South, and asked a lot of questions about what people would like to see and what kind of parking and what sort of parking did they prefer. And then we presented those results to the Hotspot Committee in early September. That survey ran from August 14th to the 31st, and it actually continued to September 2nd because we decided to extend it for a few days. At the end of September, we put out a news release announcing the Hotspot's October 7th electronic meeting and the October 14th in-person public meeting that was held next to City Hall at the Moonstone Gallery. And I was pleased to see actually that news release ran on the front page of the Times Independent, and the Sun News also picked it up, and so did KZMU and KCYN. So they definitely helped us get the word out, and that was very appreciated. On October 1st, the three-project survey, which you guys are going to see, as part of your packet today, not the survey itself, but the three projects. This survey was launched and also promoted on the website and social media and out to various community lists and organizations to encourage as many people to respond as possible. That survey ran from October 2nd to the 17th, actually. We extended it by a couple of days as well. And then on October 2nd, our public meetings, both the October 7th and the October 14th meetings, were advertised on social media and also in print. And then on October 5th, we put out additional social media advertising about the October 7th and the October 14th meeting. And then those were again advertised on our social media on October 7th, and then for October 14th on October 10th and October 14th. On October 7th, the electronic public comment meeting was held, and I think everybody was a little disappointed because we only had a couple of people call in and really only one person who spoke. Some people suggested that the issue might be that it was the night of the vice presidential debate, but I don't know if it was that or people just were reluctant to call in. And then on October 14th, the in-person open house was held. And actually that was, in my view, very successful. We had between 20 and 30 people show up. I know the mayor was there also, but in terms of residents, we had between 20 and 30 people who were not connected to the city or the county or the Hotspot Committee. And I believe, and we did take some written comments there. And then we also I also did an analysis of the three project survey and presented that to the commission later on in the month of October. So that's where we are, and here we are today. And you guys are actually seeing the fruits of this committee's labor, which have been, it's been a long process for them, but I think you'll see in the packet that they've really put a lot of thought into it. And this is just some images from the various forms of engagement that we've done. We did some Facebook posts and Instagram posts, and actually during the October 14th meeting, I sent out a live tweet to see if anybody else wanted to come down and join us. And then we did some advertising. And you can see from these images, some of the people who were here at the October 14th meeting in person. And I think I gathered from comments that I heard from people, they very much enjoyed talking to the committee members and looking at the display boards that I put together for the event. And it was really pretty successful. And that's all. If you guys have any questions or anything else, please let me know. And I'm going to unshare my screen right now so that we can talk if you need to.
Thank you, Lisa, so much. I'm sure that we do have questions, but I'm curious if we'll get to them in the meat of the sandwich when we get into the agenda items. So unless there are any questions specific to the proposal, it looks like Ronnie has a question. Ronnie, go ahead.
Lisa, I was just going to ask, are you the one to ask, or later are they going to cover the results of that second survey? Because I think a lot of us who took it were curious about the results of that.
I don't think that we plan to do that today, but if you like, I can give an update at one of the upcoming council meetings on that second survey if you'd prefer.
Well, I just recall it asking a lot about people's preferences for one project over another, and I didn't know if that had played into these rankings that we're seeing in the packet today.
Yeah, that would be a question really for the commission, but I will tell you, Ronnie, and everybody else, that the results of that survey are posted on the Hotspot website page. So you can actually go and look at the printed version of that. And then if you have other questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them for you.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Carly, would you like to go ahead and respond to that question?
This might be a little helpful. So we presented the results of that survey at the last coordinating committee meeting. So the committee members had that information when they were doing their project rankings. So that feedback was given to the committee.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Lisa regarding communication?
And Mayor, if I could, I would say, so that meeting was done on Zoom, so it is on the city's YouTube channel as well. So if you want to go watch the presentation of those results and the discussion that ensued afterwards, you certainly can do that as well.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for mentioning that. I think there's a big thank you to the committee that's in order. Very solid work. You guys did a great job, as evidenced by that timeline in moving through these items. So on to the meat of the sandwich, if you will. Agenda item number 6, presentation of concept package and transportation project prioritization list. Commissioner Curtis Wells, who is the chair of the Arches Hotspot Coordinating Committee, and Carly Castle.
All right, thank you very much. First, I just want to thank the city and Lisa for the public engagement efforts were, I think, really interesting and added a lot of value to the work that we've done. In particular, the last event that was held, I think, was really, it was good to see the community take an interest in our work and the opportunities that we have. And so I just want to commend Lisa for her work and contributions to this process. I know that we wanted to give Carly an opportunity to present the ranking results that the committee went through. Probably what I'll do first, if that's all right, Carly, is just kind of give a brief overview of the projects themselves. And so that everyone in the public has an opportunity to just kind of hear a brief description of the concept package that we're presenting today. And then we can kind of go through how the committee scored and subsequently ranked those projects. For starters, I think what I would call our primary project was our dispersed parking in the downtown core and the Emma Boulevard area. Adding parking and enhancing parking options downtown is something that, I think a lot of us on the city and the county heard from constituents both before this committee's creation and during the process. And currently there's approximately 150 parking stalls downtown. We developed concepts to create additional parking. The purpose was to create appealing and functional streetscapes that strengthen community life, expand business opportunities, and mitigate traffic congestion on and around the central Main Street area. And discussing, options for, a new round of concepts and ideas. Parking is something that really remained a primary interest and priority for UDOT, and them being our partner in this process and providing the funding, I think the committee did a good job to listen to them and to work to develop, a project, a parking project that we feel like is equitable and something that both the locals, businesses, and tourists can see a direct benefit from not only the congestion mitigation aspects, but the economic development and kind of quality of life benefits of it. Just real quickly, the concept uses a complete streets approach to redesign downtown side streets in ways that encourage greater pedestrian and bicycle activity, while also supporting the emerging needs of business, transit, and traditional motor vehicles. The cost per stall is estimated to be between $33,000 to $38,000. The total project cost is estimated to be between $4.8 million and $7.2 million. So we have left some, flexibility in there. Reason being is design, including landscaping and urban redesign, and also just the variables and unforeseen things that can come up, in the kind of the final design phase. But we feel really good about the improvements that this would make to the downtown core. And then also included in this dispersed parking. Well, first, the total new parking stall count that this is estimated to add is between 155 and 188 parking stalls. And this does include the Emma Boulevard parking project. Probably before I take any questions on that project, I'll just kind of move on and we'll get any questions or comments after I've finished kind of giving everyone an overview of each project. The second project is concept number 2, which is the shared use path connecting Spanish Valley to Moab. The proposal is for 5.2 miles of paved 2-lane pathway adjacent to Spanish Valley Drive from the intersection with Mill Creek Drive at the north end to Grand County, San Juan County line at the south terminus. The pathway will provide much needed safety improvements for bicyclists and pedestrians who currently must use the narrow and at times non-existent shoulder of the roadway, and will encourage more active transportation users who are frightened of sharing the road with motorized vehicles, both residents and tourists alike. The shared use pathway we've proposed completely, which is 5.2 miles at an estimated cost of $4.2 million. Some of the feedback we've gotten from UDOT was they felt like the northern portion of the pathway was, more appropriate or more in line with the program criteria. So we did include, a proposed segment that is shorter, which is 1.25 miles, which is Mill Creek Drive to Arroyo Crossing, also at an estimated cost of $1.87 million. This segment would provide an important commuter and recreational opportunity for many residents and tourists alike, and provide an alternative means of getting into town, keeping cars off the road and reducing congestion. So that's our second project. That was a county project, prior to the hotspot process, with many strong advocates, both on the city council and the county commission. And that was a project that obviously was kind of fused into this as an advocate and ended up making it to the finish line. Before I move on to the shuttle transit pilot, I do want to commend and thank Chuck Williams, engineer of the city, for his work on the parking project. I don't want to forget that. As we work through that as a committee, really appreciated the time and the effort put into that, and also just the city in general. And concept number 3, the shuttle transit pilot program. This isn't a good way to look at this. This isn't something that's really been defined or planned completely. Essentially, what this is a commitment from UDOT to commission a plan which includes details, costs, and benefits for a 3 to 5 year pilot shuttle system by a group of transportation consultants. And I think the initial route is planned to be along 191 Main Street and the primary transportation corridor. There's discussion of a potential like a hotel hopper, which offers a service to encourage visitors to leave their vehicles at their overnight accommodations, but also a local valley loop, connecting local residents to workforce opportunities downtown. And something to note on this, which is also on the agenda, is what UDOT has asked of us is to commit to funding 2 of those 5 years for the transit pilot. And so that's the 3rd project that made it into our package. It's a $500,000 annual expense, and kind of a little bit more open-ended than the other projects, depending on what the transportation consultants can come up with, and of course what we desire for local transit, kind of what we have in mind. So I'm happy to answer any questions just really quickly on the projects themselves, or if there's any comments or discussion on how we came up with these projects, why we did that, or of specific details. And then once we finish that up, I'd like to turn it over to Carly to kind of walk both the council and the commission through the prioritization process that the committee went through.
If I may, Curtis, before
Commissioner Wells, just one moment, Mike, I apologize. Commissioner Wells, we did talk about having the county commission chair reading a sentiment to UDOT. And I would like to just ask you, would you like to do that now, or would you like to do that at the conclusion of this agenda item?
Yeah, I apologize for forgetting that. I mean, I think that, I think it's probably just as appropriate kind of once we finish this item and take action as it is, on the front end. But I'm open either way. It's an important part of what we wanted to do here.
Chair, would you like to go ahead and take the opportunity to read the letter now?
I'm ready and want to do it when everybody thinks it will be the most appropriate.
I think this is a good time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dear UDOT staff and members of the Utah Transportation Commission, the Grand County Commission, City of Moab Mayor and City Council, and Arches Hotspot Region Coordinating Committee would like to express our sincerest gratitude and appreciation to the State Transportation Commission and to UDOT for the tremendous opportunity to participate in the Regional Hotspot Program established by Senate Bill 277 in 2017. The community is especially grateful for UDOT's generous and professionalism, while the Arches Hotspot Regional Coordinating Committee has spent the past 8 months and 12 public meetings developing this concept package for your consideration. While the discussion has been lively at times, the Regional Hotspot Program has provided a unique platform for our residents and businesses to contribute invaluable input and creative thoughts towards transportation issues and ideas in the Moab area.
The projects now before you are a unique combination of basic, essential, and direct solutions, as well as innovative, forward-thinking concepts that have the potential for growth and evolution over time. Together, this suite of projects accomplish the legislative mandate outlined in Senate Bill 277, reducing congestion, supporting economic development, and increasing recreational and tourism opportunities. The Moab community appreciates not only the opportunity presented by the Regional Hotspot program, but also the history of transportation infrastructure investment made by UDOT, the Transportation Commission, and the Utah Legislature into southeastern Utah. Projects such as the current North US 191 Main Street widening, the lane and shoulder additions to the highway spanning from Crescent Junction to the Colorado River, the improvements to Main Street and Moab downtown corridor, the Mill Creek Parkway reconstructions, and the approval for a roundabout off of 100s West. Your partnership in the Pat Creek Bridge widening and your investment in this area's regional transportation plan have been invaluable to improving the quality of life for residents and enriching the experience for those visiting the Moab region. Grand County and the city of Moab are extremely grateful for the opportunity to present this concept package to UDOT and the Transportation Commission, and this communities appreciate your considerations for our proposal. We look forward to continuing our partnership as these projects move forward. Sincerely, Emily Niehaus, Mayor of Moab, Mary McGann, Grand County Commission Chair, Curtis Wells, Arches Hotspot Regional Coordinating Committee Chair and member of Grand County Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just want to reiterate the gratitude. We are a valley of 10,000 people, and we are, asked to be set to service 5 million visitors. The cost burden of that cannot fall to us as residents, and so I appreciate all that UDOT has done, and I've said it before. I love you, DOT. So, Commissioner Wells, please take us through some comments and questions.
We also want to just take another brief minute and I want to thank Karen Guzman Newton for all the work that she put in for the transit project, and Mike Duncan. They really championed that throughout the process and wouldn't take no for an answer. And I think, should that project get funding, you two, you deserve a lot of credit for that, bringing that home for the community. And everyone, Evan and Jaylyn, did a lot of good work for the committee. Council Member Jones, was really, I think, really helpful on all the projects. And of course, Carly, Wes Shannon, our citizen on the committee, provided some really good input. And it was just a really pleasant experience working with you all on this. And, I think we've really got something here. And, I want to just, for the commissioners or committee members that weren't on the committee, want to give them an opportunity to just comment or ask questions on any of the specific projects before we move into the presentation of the rankings.
Yeah, Curtis, if I may real quickly, just a shout out in particular to Matt Hancock, who certainly opened my eyes to the whole idea of double median parking, on which our plan is pretty much based. So thank you, Matt, so much.
Not seeing any questions. Oh, Ronnie.
Just a quick one, not having been on the committee, when I was looking in the packet, can one of you just explain to me the Fair and Peers memorandum about the shuttle transit sketch plan outline? I didn't quite understand reading it. Is that something that they've offered to do if we were to move forward with that? Is that something they've already embarked on?
Yeah, that's a good question. Karen might help me on this one too. They are definitely wanting this, written commitment from us for those 2 of the 5 years, for that. And I know they've been in communication with Fair and Peers as far as, what they're planning to do and what they'd like to see. Monty's also on the line. Honestly, Monty's probably the best to answer that question. Monty Ulrich with UDOT. Monty, I don't know if you mind touching on that.
Yes, Curtis, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to explain that. We had Fair and Peers give us kind of an initial estimate of what the system could cost, and that's provided in that outline. And then once there was approval from both councils to move forward and to commit to the funding of years 4 and 5, then we would work forward to develop a concept and then work on an initial RFP, then the foundation of what an RFP could be based on. And that additional expense is something that we didn't want to go through unless there was a commitment to move forward.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Connie, Councilmember Knudsen Boyd has a question.
Well, we're on the memorandum. The disclaimer at the bottom is troubling to me. What it's telling me is when I get information back from Fair and Peers, it's not going to include their standard approach. It's not going to be subject to their normal processes and demands. It's just going to be something basic to get it to us in a short period of time. I would rather wait an extra 2 weeks or 4 weeks and have something that's complete and that they've done their due diligence on if I'm making a decision like this. So that's where I stand on that one. I want a little more clarity than just get it to us fast.
Okay.
Curtis, Carly has a comment.
Yes. Well, I think for handling the Q&A, I mean, I'm happy to help facilitate that, but I don't want to overstep here as I'm not chairing the meeting. So, Madam.
Well, Curtis, I turn it over to you to have the Q&A, to manage the Q&A. No worries.
Okay. Carly, do you want to address that?
Yeah, no, that's a good reading on that, Tani. I think the intent is for Fair and Peers to turn over to this community a turnkey ready RFP that we can then issue to get shuttle services. So they're going to be structuring like the demand and sort of designing the scope of the RFP for us. And we don't have it yet because they're waiting to get that notice to proceed from our commitment to participate, right? So then they'll develop the RFP, which we would then issue and have a shuttle operator or private entity have a contract with either the city, the county, a combination of the two. So you're right, it's not completely cooked, but right now, but the intent is to have it kind of turnkey ready by the end of this process. And within a little bit, it will take a couple of months to develop that RFP. They're complicated, as you can imagine.
Do you have any additional follow-up or thoughts on that, Tawny?
No, that's fine. Carly explained it. That it's still troubling to me, but.
And Kurt, I got a little on that.
Okay.
I know that we were sending this forward without having a clear idea if we were asking for just the hotel hopper versus entrance to the park kind of shuttle or something more valley wide. And I wonder if that might be some of the ambiguity there. Is this, are they gonna kind of propose one of those two options, or are we requesting just to start with the hotel hopper?
Well, Karen, do you want to address that? As far as whether they're planning to propose either or both, the hotel hopper or the valley wide shuttle?
Monty, I'd ask you to.
Right. So make sure am I unmuted? Just making sure.
Yep.
Okay. So I think the difference in there and what they talk about when we include transit and shuttle in the same conversation, they are different. Transit indicates a different type of system that is intended to serve the community on a continuous basis and serve the role of commuters, of low-income individuals to be able to get to and from work, and to also have a regular schedule that runs year-round. On the shuttle system, that is something that can be defined by the community, and that's actually the transit would qualify for federal transit funding. What we're talking about here is a kind of a gap between what we have today, which is nothing regarding that type of transportation in the valley, and a transit system to operate a shuttle system that can help us understand the needs of the community while satisfying the existing need and help develop the baseline to contribute to our ability to understand full transit. And so when on that technical memo, when they talk about transit studies are very in-depth and take a long time typically to get those funding approved. We believe that moving forward with an approach of this nature, we can help create a shortcut to that. And that's the nature of the reason they made the comments they did in that technical memo.
Great. So they're going to recommend to us that shortcut route to get to the grade A gold standard.
Yes. So, for instance, a shuttle, FTA, Federal Transit Authority funding is not eligible to be used on a shuttle. A shuttle, let's say if it were to go to Arches, that is not a FTA eligible activity. However, the same organization can operate a transit as can operate a shuttle. They just have to keep the accounting separate on those two activities. And so I believe, I don't necessarily like the term hotel hopper, but I understand the intent of that is to help with transportation throughout the community. It could be valley-wide in a shuttle system that runs on a regular route that could help satisfy that need, as well as help establish the understanding and the baseline for furthering those transit studies.
Yeah, I think the ultimate goal is that, we could have a visitor or a local alike that would never feel the need to have any kind of car and be able to be in this valley and to live and to work and to recreate. And I think we all realize that that's a far off. We're far from being at that place, but we hope that these guys can make some recommendations for the first step in that direction.
Yes, sir. I would agree with that. And I think this could be a very valuable first step along that path. And it would certainly help the community understand how successful a system like that would be, and ultimately, hopefully, would turn into a full transit system that could be adopted.
Great.
Bonnie.
Just
Yes.
two things, just in follow up to that, just so I'm sure, because some of the verb tenses I got a little confused. So is this something that Fair and Peers will do regardless, or I'm assuming only, if the Transportation Commission, selects this for hotspot funding, then this would move forward. I'm assuming it's not going to happen otherwise. I just want to make sure I didn't misunderstand that.
The development of the concept could be done if the councils approve that participation in years 4 and 5. then the further development of the RFP would be done and funded by the commission.
Okay, thank you. And then I just have a question for committee members about dispersed parking. And that was just originally when we took public comment and I read through those, I got the impression that a lot of our residents liked aspects of the median parking and, you know, switching up the parking some, but a lot of that was very much tied to green infrastructure being a part of that and people having shade and other things of that. And I just, so I just want to ask you guys, since we're being asked to vote on this today, how confident you are that part will happen. And what I'm trying to avoid is the situation where I help put in just more concrete parking, which is not what the residents I represent really wanted, as far as I read.
I can address that. Or I can try. So I agree with the concern as well as your assessment of the public feedback we received. Redesigning the existing downtown streets, side streets for all users and improving the aesthetics, especially landscaping, are integral to my support for this project. And I feel like it's important for the negotiators as well as UDOT to understand that going forward so that there's reasonable expectations. I feel like it's not sufficient for the functions and impacts of the parking structure to get spread out over our streets. We don't want just like all those parking stalls that were concentrated to now just get spread out and but without the other amenities for all users. So I agree with you. I think it's an ongoing negotiation that we'll have to be firm on. And you're muted.
I was adding to that, but go ahead, Ronnie. I don't want to interrupt you.
Oh, well, you can go ahead and finish. My only other side question for you guys was, and then maybe we get into this detail later, but I got some questions about the ADA. When you switch to median and a combination of angled and parallel, is it possible to try and concentrate the ADA parking on the street just so those users don't have to cross over to the median? I just was curious about that one, but I did have a question from someone who might be using those spots. Thanks.
Yeah, that sounds like a Chuck Williams question. I did want to just provide a response for your initial question, in that I think that, the challenge that, I know I felt and the committee's felt is trying to find compromise and a landing place between what UDOT would like to see accomplished with the state funding regarding the congestion and solutions that will have a, shovel-ready solutions that will have a direct impact. And then also the interests and ideas, concerns of the, the city and the county residents. And that's not been easy. We all know that, and on this parking project, I think it's fair to say we hit a little bit of an impasse where the committee and the local community felt strongly regarding the aesthetics and the landscaping that committee member Jones has suggested. And, we've just respectfully, let UDOT know that it is an important part of the project for us, and especially the program criteria that relates to economic development. And I think that, that's something that we're going to have to continue to work on. I still think it's a great project regardless, outside of
It appears that
aesthetics and landscaping concerns, a lot of concerns from, was really important to them. And, I think we've accomplished that. But, as committee member Jones has suggested, this is something that we'll need to continue to work on, and work with UDOT staff and just keep pushing to see that we all end up in a good place, and to do so in good faith, I think is really important. And, Monty has informed us, on numerous occasions that the budget for aesthetics for this project is quite a bit higher than other projects. So I know that they feel like they're doing the best they can. So we just need to continue to, to work forward on that, try to be innovative and open-minded about it. And I think everybody on the local level, myself included, loves to see investments in downtown, not just in parking, but in making downtown nicer and more appealing and enjoyable for the residents and for the tourists. And that's something that's just, even above and beyond the hotspot process. So definitely aware of those concerns. And I feel like we've heard those residents and the city residents that have expressed those, the value that they see in that and the desires that they have for that. We want to deliver the best project that we can. Chuck, I don't know. Do you want to jump back in, Chuck Williams, and address the question that Ronnie had regarding the parking project? I think you're the best man for that job.
Sure, Curtis. The short answer is that I anticipate that the vast majority, if not all, of any ADA spots would be curbside. They would not be out in the median parking. If that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks. I didn't know if it was a logical thing or not, so that helps to know. Okay.
All right, Mayor Niehaus.
I just want to share the importance of this conversation that we have now, because as the order goes for the agenda, I just want to point out to the commission and the council that we're looking to approve the package and then approve the fiscal commitment of years 4 and 5. So I just want to make sure we have plenty of opportunity to get questions answered and get comfortable around what the what the implications are of that approval.
You bet. Yeah, I think, was it Commissioner Wycheck maybe had a quick question or comment?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to sort of double down on that concern and the concern that I have and that my constituents have with regards to that type of green infrastructure. And I think that in my mind, the same sort of approach might apply to the multi-use path, especially the potential for that buffer zone being an opportunity, maybe not along the whole path, but at least an effort or attention paid to the possibility of catchment basins, or at the very least a placeholder so that could be retrofitted in the future. I think that would be, that's really important to stress in this continued conversation.
Yeah, I think that idea of retrofitting is important. I know that, the UDOT funds aren't intended for beautification, but there's nothing to stop either of these bodies from investing further in that effort in the future. So, if we get parking now and it's just concrete planters, that doesn't mean that, years from now, we can't take it upon ourselves to plant trees there or do anything in the downtown or with the pedestrian path. So I would say don't feel like, we're committing to the design as what it is. This is a group project and hopefully the Transportation Committee will commit to funding certain aspects, and then we can continue to fund other things that we would like to see in the future.
Well said. Councilmember Guzman Newton.
I just would, like the rest of the commission members and council members to know that, we really were focusing on a complete streets approach, which is, emphasizing multi-modality and the fact that there's going to be a big emphasis on safety. And, we can call it beautification, but they're really safety measures that we were looking at, and having trees or planters or, benches, they serve as an opportunity to slow the traffic down and to, create gathering places that are conducive to bikes and to pedestrians and for cars. So, if we can get there with the 6%, which is, used for the allocation for enhancements, that'd be great. But, continuing that discussion, again, with moving forward with UDOT and really emphasizing that there's safety measures and it's not just aesthetics. So, and I think we've all been pushing for that as a committee. So
I'll just make a quick add to that, Karen, that I think it's a human health issue too, where we live, because it is so hot. And if we watch where our people park, the first thing they do is gravitate to shade. And so that's just another issue. People are looking for that. And they, especially, just certain individuals who aren't used to the heat, they need a moment sometimes to slow down. It's not hard for them to get overheated or lightheaded. So in that sense, shade and benches are even more important. Thanks.
Right, and I'd just like to add to that it's also economic development. It's not just safety and economic development, even though it's not as ranked as highly in the hotspot scheme of things. It still is an element. And I also just like to point out that, we've been having discussions recently about our capital spending capacity in the city, and like the parking garage, what we're discussing it as three bodies jointly. But once it passes to us, it'll be in the purview of the city council. And so I expect you to remain critical about what we're committing to and when, as far as improvements that maybe are out of budget from the hotspot. When it comes down to it, and post-design. I do anticipate that there will be another round of design when we get a better sense of what aesthetics, economic development, safety features, our priorities, how much they cost, and what percentage of the total budget that is, and how that will actually work out. But I'm happy to support this project and take it to that level. But I realize that when we get to that stage, there may be additional questions.
So if I may add to what Kayla and Karen said, it's entirely possible in my mind that council will have to support in years to come on a rather cluttered infrastructure wish list. Further improvements in green complete streets architecture, if you will. It would be wonderful if UDOT could afford to fund all the planners and stuff that we would like to have, not only for safety, but for aesthetics. But in practice, I think what's going to happen is they won't get all the way. So it'll be up to the city in years to come to try to come up with some money to add on as years by years go by. And that's just a priority that council of those times will have to evaluate. So I'm looking forward to that. It doesn't mean that if you just get paint today, it's going to be that way forever and ever. Not at all. It's just a political decision about where to spend our infrastructure money that we'll have to make.
And I would say it might be a small area for private partnership in that as well too. If you look at the strips downtown between the sidewalks and the street, they kind of vary a lot between different business owners there. And in this process, we often looked at the area in front of the Moonflower Market because it was like kind of a model for the downtown area, and that is kind of held up as a benchmark, and it's really due to the private ownership there and their investment in beautifying that. And so hopefully there's some room for if folks did want to kind of adopt a median or whatever and take on some of those landscaping efforts. I hope that we would have those windows available for people, because the downtown owners, to Kaylin's point, totally do see this as an economic opportunity. And if we have this inviting area with shade that's beautiful. People want to come, they'll want to hang out, and yeah, so there's options there.
Well, as Mayor Niehaus has suggested, we do have a big agenda ahead of us. And so I think it'd be good if we could move on to the project ranking results presentation by Carly Castle. Looks like Councilmember Boyd has a comment.
I just have a quick question on the shared pathway. Has maintenance of that pathway been discussed? How does that fit into city and/or county budgets, depending on where it is, and who will maintain that? It's happened in the past where that was not considered during the construction or the design phase. Maintenance was just not part of the discussion.
Well, yeah, I want to invite Evan to contribute to this conversation also, as his role in active trails. But I know the county has discussed this on our side. I think probably real quickly before I turn over to Evan, because it's not clear to us whether we'll be talking about the entire project proposal or just that one portion that I identified. It's still kind of a moving target. But Evan, I don't know if you have a comment on that.
Yeah, that was, a thing. This project was already in the pipe before the redo of this funding, and that was part of the reason why it gained so much traction, was because all the planning was in place, and it was shovel ready, and it really checked all three boxes of this hotspot funding. So with that being said, something that the county was already planning on. It's we kind of do our budget 1 year at a time, so I can't say that the funds were necessarily budgeted for. So if you want to kick in and help take care of it, that's fine. But to your point of the design stuff, I think it is valid, and I think that it's worth designing a low maintenance, low cost sort of path that's going to offer a lot of longevity. But all I can really do in our annual budget thing is assure you that this was a project that had been identified and prioritized through our active trails and transportation, and to serve citizens in the valley that live outside city limits. So.
All right, thank you for that, Tawny and Evan. I think at this point, let's turn it over to the Carly Castle for the project ranking result.
Hi there, good afternoon. I'm just going to share my screen with you. Let's make that happen. Okay. Go to the slideshow, get this out of the way. Oh, not from the beginning, sorry. So as was mentioned a little bit earlier, in order to qualify for hotspot funding, a proposed transportation project must meet statutory criteria laid out in SB 277 in 2017. That was when SB 277 was passed. These criteria are reducing congestion, supporting economic development, and increasing recreation and tourism opportunities. And in the concept package, we did outline some of the ways that these specific projects achieve these goals, but it's appropriate for us to evaluate these projects, whether they first meet the criteria and then how well they meet the criteria. So we had the Arches Hotspot Coordinating Committee rank the projects according to these criteria. And the slide that I'm going to show you next is updated from the information that was presented in the agenda packet, because I had a late submission. So some new numbers were inputted in this next slide. They'll look different, and it actually changed the results a little bit. So it's valuable to have. So I can also just explain to you the methodology behind these numbers. So the committee evaluated the project sub-criteria, which were here, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being that the project doesn't meet the criteria, and 5 meaning that it does very much. Additionally, the 3 main goals, like reduce congestion, support economic development, and increase recreation and tourism opportunities, these are weighted, with reducing congestion being weighted the most. I think it was 54%, and then economic development, I think, was 33%, and recreation and tourism at 12%. So what we have here are weighted averages, basically these totals. And this one presents the average of the weighted averages. And this over here presents the sum of the weighted averages from each of the 7 submissions. And it's interesting. I think I was curious about the results of these myself. Transit came out and had the highest scores, followed by downtown dispersed parking, and the shared use path is 3rd. However, they all scored well. They all scored high. So I think they meet that threshold of, they all meet the criteria. And they're pretty competitive with each other, actually, just, a couple points here and there.
Carly, this is Ronnie. Sorry to interrupt, but this sheet has different numbers on it than the one that was in our packet. So do you know why that is?
Yeah, so as I just explained earlier, I got a late submission yesterday afternoon. So never did it. So this is an update, and it reflects those
thanks.
numbers. Yeah.
Carly, is it possible to make it bigger?
I can definitely try. One sec. I'm gonna stop share. Let me pull up the Excel file because it's a little clearer, and I can zoom in on that.
Just for those that are going to be watching on YouTube as well, it just might be good for us to put a larger sized image on the screen. Thank you.
Yeah, let's see what I can zoom in on. Sorry, I have a tiny screen myself, so I commiserate. And I can just sort of move up and down here to make it a little clearer, but these just basically repeat themselves. These sub-criteria for all 3 projects. And they're good results. I think they're not totally unexpected. It's interesting because on a system level, it demonstrates how well this suite of projects work together because they're tackling different problems with different solutions. So I think Councilmember Jones said something really insightful a couple of meetings ago where he said there's no silver bullet. In order to solve these really complex transportation issues, we have to take many different approaches. And I think this suite of projects sort of takes aim at our problems from many different ways. So it's a good suite of proposals. Any questions on that project ranking?
Carly, can you scroll down just to show the final total numbers?
Yeah.
Just on the screen. Thank you so much.
Pretty good.
So I have one interesting part of the original Hotspot ranking process was that after we went through an exercise in decision lens, we would often talk about it, and people would explain why they voted the way they did, and sometimes it would emerge that people had different understandings of ranking criteria, and in some ways that discussion was some of the most valuable aspect of it, even if like the Transportation Commission didn't hear it, they just saw the final ranking numbers, but felt like it helped everyone's understanding. And I don't know if this is a question, but it wasn't something that we had an opportunity to do, and I realized that I had the same response to these criteria in regards to these projects, and so I think that could have been interesting, but we didn't do it. And then in the Hotspot round 1, we even had the opportunity to change our vote sometimes in response to that discussion.
Yeah, we ran out of time, unfortunately. Yeah. It would have been nice to have another meeting because we sort of left it alone last week, and because of the tight turnaround, and the need for the meeting this week, we couldn't catch up with you all. So
Yeah, and I would just add to that, I haven't been involved in the decision lens process. I can certainly appreciate what Councilmember Jones is saying. You know, one of the, this isn't an exercise that is not valuable, but some of the comments, you know, that I've received and, you know, discussing with Carly, the sub criteria that we've used here, I wouldn't say is in direct alignment with kind of the recommended evaluation values from UDOT. And so I think that I think this is really, I think it was helpful, but this by no means is going to be the deciding order in how they're presented to the Transportation Commission. And so I think that with that being said, you know, there's value in not diving too deep in it also. And, you know, and I think UDOT has been very clear in that, you know, they're going to huddle with their leadership and team before, you know, we present to the Transportation Commission. And so I do see value in this exercise. I appreciate Carly kind of putting this together for us last minute, because what we were, I think, heading towards is just a vote by a committee of a ranking, you know, 1 through 3. And I don't think that was, you know, helpful to the mayor, the city council, and the commission as much as, you know, being able to see kind of how we individually ranked these projects and how they come together as an average. So the package, of course, is the deliverable, and that's most important. But, you know, but I think the ranking is helpful for the public and for the members that weren't on the committee to, you know, to see kind of how we interpreted this and analyzed it, and also UDOT.
Commissioner Wells, might we unshare the screen, Carly? And I just have a question just to follow up of the committee members. Are any of you in review of this this ranking chart having a strong knee-jerk reaction where you'd like to make a statement similar to what Kaylin made? Is there any other sentiment that wants to be shared that feels like, oh, there might have been a little bit of a disconnect with this?
So, Mayor, if I may, as a compromise to what Kaylin suggested, we might, there's 7 of us, I don't want to take too much time, but just in the terms of congestion is the most important factor. And if each of us could, literally in 25 words or less, say how you felt about the 3 different options in here and how they influenced your vote on congestion, it might be interesting.
And I'd like to just jump in that I'm not having any heartburn about the results that came out. It was just interesting it's more just a process observation than an outcome observation.
Thanks for clarifying that. And then in terms of congestion, what Mike was saying with wearing the congestion solving lens, I don't know if anyone wants to comment to that.
Well, let me just, if I may, Mayor, let me just throw this out very quickly. Congestion is widely purported to reduce downtown, to be improved by downtown parking, and I see yes and no. I mean, that was part of my response to that. Yes, in the sense that we won't have a lot of cars circling the block, so to speak, looking for parking spaces that aren't there. That'll really help. And on the other hand, with the median parking that we have out there, we're going to have narrow travel lanes, pedestrians crossing those lanes, people backing in, and so forth. So that if you're, for example, coming south on the highway and you want to turn left, for example, on First North, it may be slower to make that left turn because you're going to be aiming for a narrower spot, and there may be congestion ahead of you. Once you get there, you know, you can probably find a parking spot. But for those reasons, I didn't think congestion would be relieved by downtown parking as much as the first thought might make you think so.
I can answer.
Karen, you have your hand up to share.
Well, I would like to say that, congestion can actually be a blessing for local officials in a way, because it creates a catalyst for us to develop a more balanced approach to a transportation system. And I think we're in a place right now where we really, we want to do something good for our community, and we also want to offer an enhanced experience for our visitors. And so, again, just focusing, if we're ever going to get to a car-free experience, which I think would be an amazing goal for us to really try to focus on. And if we ever get our vision in place between the county and the city, then we need to really make moves on meeting mobility needs. And that's going to be through shuttles and scooter rentals and pedestrian paths and start focusing on what we want instead of what we don't want. And so, that's where I feel like we've landed with 3 phenomenal projects, and I'm really excited with what we're presenting. So,
I would just offer that my own ranking exercise came in differently than if I were just to score them on a blank sheet of paper. And I mentioned earlier the sub-criteria, I think, kind of drive those scores in a certain direction. But that's okay. And the name of the game for this process and this funding, I know from UDOT, correct me if I'm wrong, Monty, but they wanted to see some parking solutions downtown, and everything has been weighted in that direction, throughout the process. And I think we've taken them seriously, in that. I originally envisioned kind of a big urban redesign project, before we had gotten started. That's I think very much in alignment with some of the concerns that we're hearing from some of my colleagues here. But at the end of the day, I think perspective is really important, and this is or if not one of the biggest grants we've ever received in local government, and a very unique opportunity that we've had been able to participate in when originally we weren't forecasted to be on the receiving end of much of what we have as far as access to this funding. And so we're, I think, doing the best with it that we can is a positive thing, and I think we've done that. And Evan suggested opportunity for enhancement and growth beyond just the funding of this program, that I think is great. But I think all the projects are great. They didn't develop in the ranking probably like they are in my mind. The multi-use pathway scored higher in my exercise than probably how I feel about it. Same thing with transit, and then parking lower. But I still think it's a good exercise, and it was worthwhile going through that ranking process.
And
Commissioner, I think that we might be at a place where we need to consider final comments and deliberation around what's being proposed, so that we might move into action. But again, while moving into action will open us up for continued discussion, I just want to again draw the parallel between once we vote for to move forward with the first, it implies that we're moving forward with the second as well. So I'll leave it to you to let me know when we're at action.
I feel like we're at action. I'm prepared to make a motion.
Well, I just want to make sure if any, city or county members want to make any final comments or ask any final questions before we move on to the next agenda item where there's action. So, Ronnie.
I just want to make sure I understood what you said, Mayor. So if we have a question about the funding for years 4 and 5, do you want us to ask that now, or that will be separate discussion after this?
So I think that's what I'm implying, that conversation, because I feel like conversation around the funding really informs the, the vote on the first. So I just wanted to, again, make space for that and time for that before we move into action.
I guess I had a clarifying question then, because in the resolution ends with this statement, if the transit shuttle system is healthy and viable at the conclusion of the first 3 years of operation, blah, 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 city and county will provide funding for the operation of the system for years 4 and 5 of the project, up to approximately $500,000 a year. So I guess just to make me a little bit more comfortable, who defines that if? Who determines if it's healthy and viable?
We'll leave that to you, to someone else to answer.
Yeah, I mean, my first thought is I think we would play a big role in that, of course. And I think at that point it's going to be very evident, self-explanatory. And also worth considering is, you'll notice it's a joint resolution. And in the event that, this is just a hotel hopper and not something that's seeing a lot of use in the unincorporated areas of the county, that's another discussion that we would need to have also. But I think that, in that regard, I think we've been clear that we want to work as partners on this stuff. And, I think analysis both directly and indirectly by the public, is going to be active and evident throughout the first few years of the pilot.
Thanks for answering that question. So anything further before we move on to the action items?
Yeah, go ahead, Kalen.
Oh, so I noticed that there's a couple of sentences which one of them seems to be missing and another one, I don't know. They're just worded, I think, lesser than we would like a formal grant application to be. Do you want me to just send that to staff after, or do you want to try to get it all nailed down in advance of a motion?
I think sending staff after is definitely appropriate, because what we're, approving are concepts and not specifics. Does that feel right?
I don't think they're substantive changes.
Okay. Karen?
So I just quickly, because I don't know that other members know this. So through discussions with UDOT, and in particular with Jeff Saunders, from our regional planner with UDOT, he is really encouraging us within the first year that we need to go after grant funding for years 3 and so for years actually 4 and 5. And there is funding available that would match 50% of the budget that it would cost to do a shuttle system. And so, I mean, like I see after, if we agree with this, I mean, someone has to do some oversight, and that I would imagine, and Carly's had been part of this discussion, either a city staff member or a county staff member, potentially both. There, in other communities, there's private public partnerships, that there's a transportation demand agency, let's say. And so, I mean, there's work that needs to be done. There is, so that $500,000 a year could potentially be $250,000. It would need to be shared between the county and the city. And to also just restate that TRT money was allocated last year, that a feasible use is a transit system. So funds could come from TRT. It could come from potentially, charging a fee to use the shuttle system. I mean, there's because as some of you might know, I'm one of the more frugal members, and I hate to overcommit spending money that we do not have. So, I mean, I will do everything I can to make sure that we are spending as little as possible.
Thank you so much for sharing that sentiment, because it is a money thing, and I think there's hope for reassurance. And in conversations with you and what you've just said, I really do think there's a place for that. So, unless there's any other burning comments or questions on this presentation after Evan, then we'll move forward.
I just wanted to quickly ask our budget officer. I know that our TRT funds are already fully allocated, and I don't assume that we can spend the promotion side on this. And so, Chris, do you believe that funding the transit stuff could come from the B Roads funds, or what's your first initial reaction of where we'd be able to fund this from?
B road money needs to be spent on county B roads. And so Spanish Valley Drive is a B road, although a detached bike and pedestrian path probably wouldn't qualify for B road money. Nor would anything, that's not a county B road. We do have an optional transportation sales tax that could probably be used. The TRT that we're allowed to use for mitigation, which includes roads and transit, is already 100% in use. So there's really no extra. If we were to allocate TRT for something else, it would just mean that we have to spend whatever hole that left us. We would have to use general fund money to fill it in. So it's virtually the same as using general fund money. In order to really analyze the fiscal impact of this, I'd have to know when it was coming, what it was for. I'd need a lot of details that I don't have at the moment. But I do think that given enough time and creativity, we can figure out a way to pay for whatever we're interested in between the two of us, city and the county.
Is 4 years enough time?
Say that again.
Is 4 years enough time?
I'd say so. I mean, as long as it's a priority and there's the political will.
Great.
Thank you, Chris, for answering those questions. It's probably worth it to note too that each of these projects are going to have long-term costs associated with them. So I'd like to move us right along, if that's okay with all of you, to item number 7. The action to approve the Arches Hotspot Region Coordinating Committee's recommended transportation project concept package and prioritization list. Commissioner Curtis Wells is your name is on this agenda item, but I would just state that I think we're probably in a position to entertain a motion, unless you have any further comments.
No further comments, Mayor. I would gladly make a motion to approve the Arches Hotspot region.
Hold on just one sec. We've got it agended as city first, county second. I just got it. Sorry. So I would entertain a motion from a city council member, please.
Well, I will so move. Would you like me to repeat the resolution you just enumerated, Mayor?
Well, I don't believe it's a resolution. It's just a motion to support the concept package.
Okay. Well, the top of the resolution item in the packet does say joint resolution number 2020XX, for what that's worth, committing the city of Moab to funding.
Hold on just one sec before you make that motion. Carly, will you clarify what we're looking for in terms of a supportive motion? I'm sorry, Mike, to interrupt.
Yeah, so the motion, I think Councilmember Duncan might be looking at the resolution committing to funding. So it would be just, you can read number 7, which is move to approve the Arches Hotspot Region Coordinating Committee's recommended transportation project concept package and prioritization list. So if you just read that agenda item, that should do it.
Thank you, Carly, and sorry, Mike, for interrupting. Is that
Yeah,
clear?
no problem. Yeah, so just you want me to read the title then off item 7 then, basically? Is that what would work?
That would work as a motion.
I so move an action to approve the Arches Hotspot Region Coordinating Committee's recommended transportation package, recommended transportation project, my apologies, concept package and prioritization list.
Thank you for that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Karen? Thank you so much. Any final discussion or deliberation needed? Ronnie?
I just want to thank you committee members for all of your time and effort, because I know it was huge, and thank you very much.
Ditto. Any other comments? I will call for the vote. Mike?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Connie?
If I have to vote for it as a package, there's too many red flags and too many unanswered questions, so I'm saying no.
Ronnie?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. Now over to you, Chair
I didn't
Mary.
get Kaylin's vote.
Oh, Kaylin, my apologies.
Aye.
My apologies. I thought I said your name.
Sorry,
Motion
thank you.
still passes 4-1. I'm so sorry, Kaylin. And now over to you, Chair McGann. Sorry, Kaylin.
Thank you, Mayor Emily Niehaus. And I want to give us, before we vote, I want to give a special thank you to Evan Clapper, Jalen Hawks, and Curtis Wells for stepping up to the plate and working on this committee. I think the effort has been tremendous and the outcome is clear to me. I'm very happy with it. I will entertain a motion. Curtis?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would move we approve the Arches Hotspot Region Coordinating Committee's recommended transportation project concept package and prioritization list.
Motion by Curtis Wells. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Evan Clapper. Any discussion?
I would take a brief moment to give the chair of the committee, Curtis Wells, a big kudos on this. He ran great meetings. He was invested from the very beginning in sniffing out these funds to begin with. He took the political pressure to kind of bring this back up when we got another project that wasn't widely supported. And he was able to run efficient meetings, and we were under a deadline, and really kept the discussions on track. And he did a really great job from through the whole process. So kudos to him for that.
Thank you.
Okay, motion by Curtis Wells, seconded by Evan Clapper. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Curtis Wells?
Aye.
Gabriel Wojtek?
Aye.
Evan Clapper?
Yes.
Jalen Hawks? She's still here? Jalen Hawks? I've not seen her. Mary McGann? Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
And now we'll move on to item 8, discussion regarding resolutions committing to funding.
Excuse me, she voted yes, Jalen Hawk. So that makes the motion 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I apologize for interrupting.
No, that I just got a message. Thank you.
Okay, now on to item 8, discussion regarding resolutions committing to funding years 4 and 5 of the Transit Shuttle Pilot Project. Commissioner Curtis Wells. I'm not sure what more we need in terms of discussion, but.
Yeah, I don't have anything to present on the item, so we can go ahead and begin discussion or entertain a motion, whichever you prefer.
And can we just clarify what motion, again, we'd be looking to have with this agenda item?
Well, we would be adopting this joint resolution, correct?
Carly?
I don't think that we were going to discuss we were going to discuss the concept of these resolutions.
Okay.
It's not ready for adoption yet because we probably want each body to be able to vet it in the financial viability for themselves. The resolution is meant as a discussion item, so you just are understanding that we need to talk about committing to years 4 and 5 at some point. So the sequence is a little wonky. Let me try to explain it. What we're doing with the concept package is we're saying to UDOT, we recommend, in this case, the transit shuttle. And UDOT will probably come back and say, sounds good, but we need you to commit to years 4 and 5 before we recommend to the Transportation Commission. So the concept is in, as of today, and then there's going to be some back and forth as we firm up the commitments going forward and before passing to the Transportation Commission. So that discussion will happen in coming weeks.
Thank you, Carly. And so in terms of this agenda item, is there further discussion or comments at this time that we should be having?
Only if you want to give direction to city staff about what you have in mind for this resolution discussion, or to county staff as well, but just want to get your thoughts on it and make sure we start to prepare this resolution. It will probably have to be turned around in about a month or so. So just those.
I think that by approving the concept package, it's implicit that we are providing direction to both county and city staff to move forward with, get ready for resolution if this particular item is selected. Any other comments about that? Okay. And then to our item number 9, discussion of potential resolution in support of a bypass. Mayor Emily Niehaus and Commissioner Curtis Wells. I just want to make a comment. I apologize that this item seemed to take some space away from the conversation around the Arches Hotspot Coordinating Committee members' work. Y'all did a great job, and I apologize for any attention that receiving public comments on this item took away because of the listing this bypass agenda item. But Commissioner Wells felt it important to have this discussion on our agenda as it does relate to congestion. And I want to be very, very clear with all of us, the two bodies, and for community members listening, that there is no proposed resolution. There's no language, there's no proposed resolution. The point of this agenda item was to, because we have the two bodies together and because we're talking about congestion, pose the question, do we want to continue discussion around the concept in support of a bypass? And if we do, then what that would do is trigger public hearings, a public hearing or hearings and community outreach. Certainly not to the extent that we saw from all of you committee members with Arches Hotspot, but there would be significant outreach with the community to make sure that we, feel confident that we've got support. And so the purpose of this agenda item is to get the sense from both bodies on, how we'd all like to move forward as we've been talking about and dealing with congestion. And Commissioner Wells, you're also on this agenda item if you'd like to speak as well.
Yeah, just really briefly, to summarize and add some context, I brought the bypass concept back up in 2017 after the passage of Senate Bill 277, which is now created the Hotspot funding program. And I originally identified it as an opportunity for the bypass. Throughout the process of the Hotspot program being created, it became evident that UDOT wasn't interested in seeing Hotspot funding go into projects that, that were concepts or weren't, that we weren't able to construct and implement in a reasonable time frame. And so at that point, UDOT commissioned Fair and Peers to conduct just a very, very high level concept study so that we had something to work off of. And we received that study, as a group I remember reviewing that in a joint meeting of sorts. And the message from UDOT was, if you're serious about, the project does have its skeptics, of course. And I recognize some council members, or some of my colleagues may not support it. But UDOT was very clear that if for the project to be a project and to be a thing and move forward, you have to formally recognize it, in your planning, in your general plan, your transportation plan. And we just never really did anything, and we put it on the shelf. And this isn't the type of project that we can run, millions of dollars of environmental and engineering and analysis for the city council or the county commission to sit and evaluate how they feel about it. And so the way the process has to work, if we are serious about moving forward with a concept, not a specific route, not a specific design for a certain bridge or what have you, but we do have to take a formal action to, at some point, to express formal support for it. And the other issue is that the city and the county have been on both sides of the issue at different points in time when it's come up. Once in the 90s and once in the early 2000s, the county was in support, the city was not, and vice versa. That is also a request and a concern of UDOT's, that if we do indicate support for the bypass, that both entities are in alignment on that. And thirdly, I'll just say that why I'm an advocate, for the project is because both in just, I think, looking at the situation in Moab and how unfortunate it can be at times, and also the data that was cultivated from the Fair and Peers study, the amount of traffic, both semi-truck and cut-through traffic on Highway 191 continues to increase every year. Highway 191 is a major north-south corridor state highway that runs right through the middle of our little town. And those trends are going to continue that way. On the other end of that is the tourism traffic that we have attracted to Moab. And regardless of county and city ordinances and policies, in my opinion, Moab has boomed and will continue to boom. And that tourism traffic coming into Moab, in addition to those trends of commercial and non-commercial traffic on Highway 191, are real issues that are going to continue to grow. And no one is going to solve that problem for us. UDOT will not solve that problem for us. It's not going to go away. And so I brought this project up, worked with some of you to see if, we could make a project out of it and a more direct solution to our congestion problem. And UDOT was kind enough to spend some money on studying the issue, and it's just kind of hanging out there. And so I recognize it's a concern for some folks. I know we have expressed that we are willing to really increase the intensity of capital required for this project to mitigate impacts to neighborhoods. No one is interested in seeing any neighborhoods irreparably harmed. We don't have a lot of options, for this problem. Again, there is no silver bullet, but at some point we need to decide whether we have interest in a bypass concept or not. And why it's timely to me is I see the December 11th meeting at the Transportation Commission where we present the hotspot findings, a really good opportunity to provide the Transportation Commission an update on where we stand on that project at the local level. And finally, I'll just say that I think some of you would be surprised to see the kind of support that we could get for this project at the state level. Even with the high price tag, those conversations happen. The bypass has been in the press. There's a lot of leadership at the state level that see the viability for a project. We just have to make a commitment at the local level that we're behind it. That was the goal and the intent for today's discussion, to see if that support exists for us to move forward to direct staff to kind of formalize that support.
And Commissioner Wells, I appreciate that comment that when we're presenting this to the Transportation Commission in December, this would be a good time for us to say, how does the community feel? So if I've learned anything with the Arches Hotspot money, it is that we as two bodies must listen to our community and respond based on the comments that we receive from our community, how we feel about any project moving forward before we get going. And so, you all have an option today to say, forget about it or think about it later, or go through a public process now and have the conversation now. And I think that is, that is really why we're on the agenda and talking about this, because it really does dovetail with the conversation of congestion. So I'd like to hear from any of you with direction on how to move forward. Tawny, you had your hand up first a while ago, and then Ronnie. I saw Ronnie's hand, and I'm seeing Evan's finger. So I don't know. Tawny, you want to go first?
I just wonder how many times we have to say no. How many times we have to hear from our neighbors in Mountain View that they don't want this, and every time it's brought up, it causes exactly what happened in the last 2 days. We've said no more than once for many, many years. This has not been what this particular council or the Moab City Council has wanted to do. The concepts that we have been given are not bypasses. They do not bypass town. They just move traffic a little bit further south, and it does exactly what our citizens to be heard were saying earlier. It just impacts different people. And if this is what we're talking about a bypass, I don't want to have any more discussion, because this isn't a bypass.
So that would be a sentiment to not move forward with a public hearing process. Okay. Others? And thank you for that statement. I think that's all very important for all of us to understand as we kind of grapple with this. Tawny?
Or Ronnie?
Sorry, Ronnie. Y'all rhyme.
I definitely want time because I got a lot to say about this, but I want to first give the mic to the members of the committee, because one of my first comments is I was very upset to see this on the agenda in terms of how I feel like it derailed all of the hard work that the Hotspot committee did. And I really feel like this meeting should have focused on their work and the findings of their research. And I would like to hear from them first, and then I will speak.
Karen?
So I was really upset to see that the bypass agenda item was on our meeting, and I discussed that with you, Mayor, because I really did feel like it did thwart the work that we've been doing for the last 8 months, and bypass information has not been a part of the conversation. And I don't want to give the impression to the community that this is some secret agenda that we had, and I don't want the bypass hoopla to look like maybe we're trying to pass something with the Arches Hotspot projects, and because there's so much clamor with the bypass, and I would have appreciated having the focus just be on the hotspot projects. That being said, there is, congestion's real. Is the widening project going to have the benefits that UDOT originally was hoping for? Our fingers are crossed. I highly doubt that will be the case. And would I love for us to own our main street? Heck yes. I mean, because there's a lot that we could do. And carbon gas emissions, again, that we have with diesel trucks going through Main Street is a big deal. And there is environmental impacts with the congestion that we have. But I do not support going through a neighborhood. And I've always said that, it has to go at least to Blue Hills Road in order to make any difference to congestion. So, but if we could potentially have a road go to Blue Hills Road, or we can divert the truck traffic to Hanksville, that would be a promising bypass. So.
We are at 2:38, so just as comments come in, just let's favor brevity. Mike, you're up.
Yeah, I want to add my comments that I felt sideswiped about this item being on the agenda as well. I want to make everybody confident that of the two proposals that were presented by UDOT a long time ago, neither one of them were acceptable to the neighborhood, to the town in general. The only way to do this would be to bury a tunnel completely underneath the west edge of the rim out there. And I highly think, for a variety of reasons, it will never happen, all right? Because it's a geologically unstable area. It's fractured to beat the band, I can tell you, from water work. It would be enormously expensive. We're talking about billions, all right? And even the most expensive thing that UDOT threw out there had partial sound walls and all that, and doesn't begin to cover what we would take. It also would have to come out way farther south than Northeast. And that's a highly convoluted area with full of development and property rights considerations and so forth. I just don't think it's going to happen. It's sure as hell not going to happen in my lifetime, and probably not in any of yours. So I would quit worrying about it. And for that reason, I don't see any reason to have a public discussion about it now, unless the ground rules change. Okay, by the state offers that kind of money to run it. Do something really remarkable, like a very deep tunnel that might get it underneath the fracturing, or run it up Cane Creek Canyon. That's even more expensive. A world of bridges up that way. But under the scenario that we're operating in now, no, I would not vote to bother with a public hearing.
And so it seems like that is the sentiment coming out. Does anybody want to pursue with a public hearing and continue this conversation of a bypass?
I would, not to speak just for the sake of speaking, but I do want to recognize that it's commendable to recognize the value in striking when the iron is hot. I think that, all of this happens through relationships, and to recognize that we've got a meeting scheduled. It's going to be conversation that comes up. It's difficult to get the 12 members of these two bodies and all the associated staff together. I recognize and appreciate the efforts made to kind of take advantage of the meeting as much as we could. I think that if this was a project that was widely supported, it would be great to bring it up at this meeting. So thank you to the mayor and Curtis for looking for feedback on if this is something we would want to pursue, because if it was something that the community was 100% on board with, bringing it up at the meeting would be ideal and perfect timing. But I think that with the feedback that we've seen come out in these last couple of days on short notice, I can't say that the community is all on board 100%. UDOT has done a lot to address congestion with the widening of the road on the north end of town. Hopefully that will come to fruition and easing some of that congestion. We're currently going through a regional transportation planning process, and the the bypass has been brought up in that process, as well with some other options of frontage roads and all that. And so with things that are currently in the pipe, I don't think that we need to bring it up. We need to move forward with any public hearings or any of that. I don't support that, but thank you for having your eye on the prize and you know, trying to get after it while we can for other projects.
I appreciate that. I will say that, you know, to the folks that commented that it fills them with anxiety when the bypass comes on the agenda, as a chair, you know, it is the responsibility to put on the agenda items requested. And so, you know, that's what Mary and I did here today. I actually really appreciate this dialogue because it's quite helpful. And as we move forward in conversations about congestion, are there any others that want to share an alternate sentiment? Or Ronnie?
I want to say something really quick, is that if we put this to bed, you know, that there is not the will in the community to look at a bypass, my hope is that then we will start to be creative in how we deal with the way people walk, pedestrian traffic, really looking at our downtown and how can we change it so that it becomes safer for pedestrians, from having you know, bypasses for pedestrians to walk over Main Street to having it so that people are more likely to walk behind the current businesses. There's so many ways that we can deal with this problem of having our Main Street be Highway 191 that does not involve a bypass. And I feel oftentimes this bypass has kept us from looking at more creative ways of dealing with this issue. Downtown and Main Street can be improved, and if we put our minds to doing that rather than figuring out how we're going to change the Highway 191, rather look how can we redesign our community to make it safer, happier, and a place that people want to be. So if we
Thank you,
put this to rest, I hope we do that. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I realize
Ronnie,
time is short, but I just want to chime in and so that the community is aware that I too am not in favor of pursuing this proposal or a public hearing. And
Thanks,
there's
Kaylin.
many
So
reasons,
Emily,
but for the sake of time, I will call it there.
Thank you. Jalen, yes?
Emily, can you hear me? Oh, good. I figured out how to unmute. I don't have the agenda in front of me because I'm joining this on the road, but I would like to offer a brief opposing point of view. In my mind, this is leaving an option on the table, and I am one for always leaving my options open. Having said that, I was on the committee a couple of years ago as well when the bypass was looked at, and I will say that the options that came up that were presented at that time, which is what you see in the packet today, I thought back then that they were ridiculous and wouldn't address the problem because, as many citizens mentioned, they dump traffic off in the middle of town. And yes, it has to go way further out of town. And so in my mind, the community always has the option to say, no, that's not going to work. And I don't feel like we've had a full conversation. We have received a lot of letters. There were some that were favoring it. I believe that if we had a full conversation with the community, we might get some different feedback. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Madam
Thank you,
Mayor,
Jalen.
if I may,
Yes.
just really quickly in response. So neither the city council nor the county council, now the county commission, ever took a vote on the issue, which is one of the primary purposes of this. So for the folks that are like, how many times do we have to say no? We've never said anything. We've just reviewed information. So that's number one. Number two, I echo what Commissioner Hawks has said, is we're hearing primarily from a group of citizens that live in one area that I fully understand their concerns. And we've said on numerous occasions, we're not going to support a project, that doesn't mitigate any impacts to them to the fullest degree, whether they, believe that or hear that, is not my decision. And also that the routes identified in the concept study, there was nothing concrete there. Again, for us to ever leave the option on the table or have the option and get any kind of traction, it has to be a component of the county's transportation plan. It doesn't mean we have to choose a specific route. That's the big one. And so if I think the exercise is helpful, if the political will and interest of the city council and the county commission is to not have that option and not start working towards a bypass of downtown Moab of 191, I hear you, and if that's the will, that's great. But this conversation needed to happen, and I think that we deal with controversial issues and tough issues, and I deal with those head on all the time on agendas that are very diverse. And with the meeting on the 11th with the Transportation Commission to present our findings of Hotspot and the focus on congestion, I found it very much, possible, if the will of the bodies agreed, to present on this also. And, I'll add an apology. I don't think this is really sideswiped or added any kind of taken away from the work that myself and others of the committee have done on the Hotspot program. But with the timing and the urgency needed, and also just to tie up a loose end, I'm glad that we were able to have this discussion. And I just, want everyone to be aware that, the congestion will continue to be an issue, but the opportunities for big, bold solutions, we've missed that on this one on several occasions. And so I hope that, as Mary suggested, if that's the direction we're going, we can look at unconventional, or other solutions downtown that can help mitigate the problem. Thank you.
Ronnie needs to have her time. She's been interrupted several times.
I'm Ronnie.
Yeah, I'm speaking on behalf of my constituents, a lot of who wrote me and asked me to speak for them. Well, first of all, I think we all know we have traffic problems, but for those of you who are fans of The Mandalorian, it sounds like we can agree this is not the way. And so thank you, Mary. I think we all look forward to having that larger conversation, but I think some other things need to be said today because we were elected to represent the people who live here. And there is a representative in the US Congress, Representative Grace Napolitano, who has served since 1999, and she's been pivotal in helping us get money and support for removing the tailings at the UMTRA project. And let me tell you some advice she gave to us about serving for such a long time in that capacity. Grace says, good leadership and staying in power in government and being in elected office is about listening to people about what they need and not acting on what you think they need. So I have to say a few things on behalf of my constituents. First of all, I will repeat what I've said to residents before, which is I remain committed to past statements that until the majority of our residents say they want to bypass, particularly those most impacted by its location, wherever that may be, and people don't get naive, it could be down Mill Creek, it could be down Spanish Valley Drive. So stop picking on these people on Mountain View because it's been a very unpleasant form of bullying. I will not support the idea. And even then, if the investment is a bad deal for the people of Moab or Utah residents generally, I will say no. I'm especially angered by the way colleagues put this on the agenda. If the majority of council members want to discuss something like that, that's fine, that's your right. What you don't have, in my opinion, is the right to put a 2018 study in the packet that lays out two options and only two, both of which impact neighborhoods of residents we were elected to represent who say they don't want this, without an agenda summary or other context. Something was added later last minute, but who's gonna see that? and then say that you won't support any options that impact neighborhoods. There is nothing in the original packet that a regular person would look at and say, oh yes, clearly our elected leaders are committed to protecting our neighborhoods. I'm particularly frustrated by this because the city has had a communication reputation problem since I came on the council in 2016. We've tried to improve that, but this kind of communication does nothing but harm that effort. I'd also like to say I'm also dubious about this whole tunnel idea. We haven't seen any numbers on it, or at least in a long time, but we're talking about billions of dollars here. And I cannot, with good conscience, in the era of 2020, COVID and climate change and all the other pressures on the health and well-being in our valley in the state of Utah, ever consciously defend spending so much money for prioritizing automobiles over other human needs. A fraction of those billions, for example, could presumably go far to advance mitigation solutions other residents have suggested. And I'm sure I'm going to be cut off here. So instead of reading my full list of comments that residents had made, I'd just like to point out we were elected to represent these residents. And if you've read their emails, and I have, I can tell you, some of the headlining items brought up multiple times are the breach of trust this brings up, people saying deciding the best route for a bypass without informing them, possibly those people possibly affected is devious and wrong. There are issues of the sinkhole, the geologic hazards mapping, people saying Moab government seems to be intent on making this place unlivable for residents while giving it all away to visitors. Lots of concerns people raised about the data in the packet. I think we really need to be responsible about what we put out, especially if there's no agenda summary. There are lots of good questions in here about numbers. The numbers would make you think that 1 out of every 3 or 4 vehicles on our roads are semis. All the residents writing are going to tell you they disagree with that. There are lots of suggestions people have in here. They feel like a bypass doesn't address the real problem, which is over promotion that's unsustainable. I don't know how many of you watched the conservation conversation through USU this week on challenges and solutions to keeping parks and public lands from being loved to death with the Park Service, USU, the Forest Service, and state parks. I strongly recommend you take a look at that because it covers a lot of communities like ours and how they're dealing with issues like this. Our residents have so many recommendations and they're asking us not to do this before we exhaust other options, not to do this until we see how the highway widening works out. They want us to look at things like re-envisioning downtown, putting in more vegetation to dampen sound, adding shade, lowering speed limits, reprogramming traffic lights, sending trucks through another part of Utah or Colorado. And I think it's fair when they say that our inherent problem is not through traffic, and that if that was the case, Monticello would have this problem. It's the people coming to Moab who want to be here.
Ronnie, I just want to say thank you for your comments and for what you're sharing. But it is 2:55. And I think that we have all heard you loud and clear of what your position is. And so I do want to say thank you and appreciate your passion. I did see another hand from Wes. And then Gabe, and then we're done. Wes?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on that too. That one's going to be tough to follow, but just speaking up for the Main Street Alliance, I mean, if you walk down the street right now, you're going to get 200 different answers to the bypass. And so, yeah, it's just, I don't really have any information for you on that. I mean, it's going to take a lot of time and energy to kind of suss that out with the downtown. Because like I said, it's very polarizing for people and some people don't want it. Some people do want it. So I just thought I would chime in and give my 2 cents. So thank you.
Thank you, Wes and Gabe.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's important for me to say that I don't support the concept. And furthermore, I think it just entertaining it sends a message that we're prioritizing this unsustainable growth trend that we've been experiencing over the quality of life of our residents. So I just don't think I think it's disrespectful to our residents. I do want to say that in terms of coming up with solutions and ideas and being creative in the absence of that potential juggernaut, there is an open survey right now that for the aforementioned Moab and Spanish Valley Regional Transportation Plan. And I do think that there's going to be some publicity to try to solicit more involvement in that survey, but it's a great opportunity for the public. Folks that are listening into this meeting can help spread the word, and we can continue to do so. But if you go to Moab Spanish Valley RTP.org, it's a great opportunity that's available at this moment now to have input in the long-term plan of the Valley's transportation.
Mayor, I'd like to say one thing real fast that hasn't been said, and that is that UDOT doesn't have funds for this project. It requires the state legislature to set aside funds for us. It will require massive political capital, and the community has made it really clear that this is not where they want us to put our efforts with the legislature. Thank you.
And Mayor Emily, can I just say one more thing? This is Jaylyn.
Sure.
Sorry, I'll make it very brief, but I have to respond. I actually did read every single email, and so I am well aware of all those issues. The bypass is not scheduled to be built next year. It's not even scheduled. And I do feel like, of all the emails I read, perhaps we've seen feedback from, 1 to 5% of our constituents. I was elected to represent constituents, and I try to do that very fairly, but I don't think we have had a true conversation. It was last minute, and so how in the world do we think we've heard from every single person? So, and again, I would not support the bypasses as presented, but this is a very, very long process with many, many hoops. I just would like to keep our options open for the distant future. And one more thing, if we think we're going to solve the downtown problem without taking the big trucks off of Main Street, I can't remember the exact figures, but it's like at least 34% and growing every year. So that's it. Thank you.
Emily,
Thank you
I
all
would- sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm just going to second what Jaylyn said because I agree. Having options, what's presented is not acceptable, and I have heard from many city residents as well that are in that support a bypass. So,
And UDOT declined to analyze the versions that went around the valley. Mayor, I move to adjourn this meeting of the Moab City Council.
I second.
Thank you, Kaylin. Thank you, Ronnie. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for sharing today. Good work.